Most of you are aware that iilluminaughtii is a well-known and widely disliked YouTuber for a plethora of issues that surfaced just over a year ago. Over the past year, more and more has come to light, making the situation even worse, including lawsuits and the drop in her channel's performance. Despite this, she has been uploading content continuously throughout everything going on, at least up until nearly 3 months ago. People have pointed out that her consistent posting stopped in February, and now many speculate that this is the end of the road for her channel. Has she actually quit, or is something else going on? And on top of everything, she is continuing to make many claims in legal documents about ex-SadMilk members such as Oz Media, Wonderstruck, and more. Hello, it's been a few months since I've discussed iilluminaughtii. In fact, it's been a minute since I posted anything at all. I think this is the first video of the month, and we're already almost halfway through the month. I do apologize for that. I've been working really hard on this video, and I've been working on it for about 2 weeks at this point. The updates seem to be endless, never ending, and they seem to come back to back. And instead of doing constant videos with small updates, I figured to just put it all into one bigger video after things accumulated for a while and go over everything in as digestible of a way as possible. And today we're going over the highlights of some major situations going on with these lawsuits, as well as some other information that I would like to get into later on. I was originally going to wait until everything had been settled, but like I said, so much keeps happening that it feels like it's never ending at this point. Which brings us to right now. To be transparent, it doesn't seem like the lawsuit itself is over just yet, but with everything that we will be diving into today, things definitely look pretty bad for Blair, and all of this stuff seems like it's been dragged out a lot. So if you've been on my channel for a few moments and you have seen my other videos, you've most likely seen videos that I've done regarding another creator known as SS Sniper Wolf, who has nothing to do with this specifically. But there's a creator who I've mentioned quite often in those videos named TheMadCatster. TheMadCatster is a fantastic creator on YouTube who is also an attorney. He dives into a lot of legal issues over on his channel. TheMadCatster has gone over pretty much every detail of the iilluminaughtii lawsuits, and I highly recommend you check out his channel if you haven't already. With that being said, today I want to go over a lot of these lawsuits in as digestible way as I can, and a lot of that is thanks to TheMadCatster for doing so many videos covering every update regarding all of these lawsuits. Before we get into any of that, I want to go over a bit of a recap with you regarding the iilluminaughtii situation for all 2 of you who have no idea what's going on, only because it's been a little bit since we've talked about her. Before we continue, and no, this isn't a sponsor or anything I'm directly affiliated with, I have something that I want to talk about towards the end of this video, and if you are interested, please either stay until the end of the video, or if you decide that you're not interested in the topic that I'm discussing anymore, skip to this timestamp here to hear me talk about it. It's really important. On April 20th, 2023, Blair accused another creator known as Legal Eagle of plagiarism through a series of tweets that were not only untrue, but also ended up backfiring on her terribly. This resulted in a ton of creators coming forward and sharing their stories with how Blair has mistreated them over the years. In many of these cases, she was tyrannical, controlling, extremely vindictive, and manipulative. Allegedly.
I'll sue ya! I'll take all your money! I'll sue ya if you even look at me funny!
With this information coming to light, many fellow creators in her old group known as SadMilk had spoken out against her. Some spoke out shortly after, and others had taken a while to share their stories. This includes Oz Media, One Topic, Wonderstruck, The Click, Felix the Kit Kat, and others who were unrelated to SadMilk such as Tommy C and Cruel World Happy Mind. In regards to the lawsuit, it seems that Blair's main focus is on Oz Media, Wonderstruck, and Felix the Kit Kat, the person who Blair allegedly paid $200 to dig up dirt on the Click as a form of retaliation against the Click. These lawsuits have been going on for months at this point, and the longer they go on, the more ridiculous everything seems to be regarding Blair's case. Back in December, TheMadCatster, who we will be mentioning a lot in today's video, made a video on Blair's amended legal complaint against Oz Media, Wonderstruck, and Felix the Kit Kat. Amended means she made a legal complaint, and either her or her team went back in and fixed a few things, hence amending it. Why they did that, I have no idea. And by the way, TheMadCatster made this video in December, but I believe the actual complaint was sent in November. As you can see here, one of the big complaints Blair has made is that Oz, Wonder, and Felix have broken confidentiality agreements that they have all signed at different points throughout the year of 2021. If I'm reading this correctly, it's worded to seem that this was done to protect confidential information of Blair's company, which would be her YouTube channel. I want to make this clear, this is just my opinion. I'm not a lawyer by any means. I don't have a law degree, so take what I say with a grain of salt. By the way, I'm going to be repeating the words "in my opinion" a lot in this video. I'm just giving you a heads up now.
That's my opinion!
But it is my opinion that it's very obvious that what she's doing here is just trying to get Oz and Wonder's videos taken down and getting them silenced because she doesn't want what they have to say to be out there. And it's also, in my opinion, based off of the context that we're diving into today, that Blair will do anything possible to keep them from speaking out against her. You'll see what I mean later on when we get into this civil protection order and more information regarding these lawsuits, such as trying to say they've disclosed private information breaking the agreement. All they did was share their personal experiences. This complaint also mentions Blair and Oz's relationship and how they lived together in Oz's home in January of 2021, and according to this document, they broke up in September of 2021, and she moved out of Oz's home and purchased her own home. The next page mentions how she sent Oz, Wonder, and I'm guessing also Felix, cease and desist letters in June of 2023. On July 25th, 2023, a defamatory video titled "The Fall of Illuminati, YouTube's Biggest Bully" was posted about Blair. This video was published by Redacted. In that video, defendants speak publicly about their intent to publish another defamatory video about Illuminati. So obviously legal names are redacted here, but this is somebody who, at least to my knowledge, is not currently being sued by Blair, yet she's being mentioned in this lawsuit. Anyway, if you type this title on YouTube, it obviously won't give you the person's legal name, but what pops up is a video by Cruel World Happy Mind. They also got the date wrong. It was posted on the 26th, not the 25th. And I'm not trying to nitpick that, by the way. I get small details wrong from time to time too, but this is supposed to be written by a legal professional to settle a legal dispute. You would think that they would be dotting all of their I's and crossing all of their T's when trying to make a legal complaint. So yeah, she claims that Cruel World Happy Mind's video was defamatory, even though a bunch of what was shown in her video was already widely discussed. Not even just when all of this happened last year, but many years prior, because Cruel World Happy Mind and Illuminati had issues way before any of this took place. But it's just really weird that this was even included, considering the only time that Oz or Wonder or anybody else was mentioned was discussing them the way any other YouTuber was discussing this from an outside perspective. The main purpose of this video by Cruel World was to share her own experience with Illuminati and show support to those who are also affected by her. Unless there's some other lawsuit that we don't know about at this time. I really don't know why this was even mentioned in her lawsuit. Oz Media's video update on the situation is then referenced in this document, and then she goes into Wonderstruck's situation. The thing with Illuminati is that she has made tons of accusations against all of these people in her video Illuminati Exposed. Some of the people she has made accusations against have been her targets for years, allegedly. To remind you, Wonder is the person who had a mental health crisis that Blair aired out publicly in her Illuminati Exposed video, sharing very personal and private details to over 1 million viewers. In my opinion, Blair, being the type of creator who goes after unethical businesses and business practices, you'd have to have a lot of balls doing that, and then going after your ex-friends and ex-partners for sharing their stories and experiences that just so happen to be negative experiences regarding you. The lawsuit goes into more about Wonderstruck, which I've already made a video discussing the situation with him. I'll leave that linked below, but to be brief, she continues to claim in her document that he failed to do his job properly, which he had, in my opinion, debunked in his own response video and in Google Documents. And this was back when Blair made her Illuminati Exposed video. There is a point in this complaint where Blair claims that Wonder accused her of stealing his car, which to my knowledge, he never said this in his video. This is what he actually said about the car.
On July 29th, Blair came to Texas to revoke a car in the middle of the night, which she claimed I breached contract, which we will get to in a moment as to how this was not the case. Blair touches on the subject of a BMW she purchased for me due to my old car dying and wanting to help a friend out. I'd like to clarify I did not ask Blair to do this. In fact, I insisted on our first call the exact opposite. I am not a luxurious person. I like nice things like cozy homes, but the most expensive car I have ever owned was a $5,000 Miata, and that was a surprise gift from my dad after my first car got stolen. I do not desire expensive things, as that just personally is not who I am. Also, as a person who does not like when people buy me things, I was was extremely uncomfortable with someone making such a large payment towards a vehicle on my behalf. Wait, you now know the events that led up to July 29th, where the car was repossessed. You know the story of the deadlines, how I wasn't kept on payroll, how I flew to Colorado to make sure said deadlines occurred, etc., etc. We don't need to fully recap there.
So to clarify, the car that was stolen, according to Wonder himself in his video, was his very first car. After his first car was stolen, his dad gifted him a Miata, and sometime after the Miata, he had a 2011 sedan that, according to Wonder, wasn't in that bad of a condition. Blair purchased a BMW for him, and the BMW is the car that she later repossessed, according to Wonder. So anytime a mention of a car being stolen was a car that had nothing to do with Blair. Anytime he mentioned a car that had to do with Blair, he never accused her of stealing his car like she's claiming he did in this complaint. From everything that I am aware of, unless I missed something, he said the words repossessed, revoked. He did not say the word stealing. The only time he mentioned any car being stolen was something unrelated to Blair entirely. So it is my opinion that Blair is just making up claims that he never said and arguing with these made-up claims instead of the things he's actually said in his video. Again, unless I'm wrong and I missed it somewhere where he claimed that she stole his car, please inform me, but I went into the transcript of this video and typed in the word stole and stolen, and the only time that word popped up in the transcript was when he was talking about a different car that was stolen before Blair had given him the BMW, and it had nothing to do with her.
But the most expensive car I have ever owned was a $5,000 Miata, and that was a surprise gift from my dad after my first car got stolen.
And then the complaint brings up that Wonder's response to her cease and desist was to create a GoFundMe for legal fees. I mean, yeah, one might do that in a situation like this if they don't have the funds themselves, because paying for a lawyer, especially in a lawsuit like this, I imagine would be fairly expensive. Moving on to the portion with Felix the Kit Kat, the complaint reads, defendant is a former employee of Illuminati. Felix the Kit Kat is in violation of the agreement by turning over private messages between he and Illuminati to a YouTuber, quote unquote, to exploit in a video made to slander Illuminati. Regarding these messages, Felix the Kit Kat edited selectively picked messages to create the appearance that Illuminati made statements that she did not. So let me get this straight. Blair and her legal team are accusing Felix of turning over private messages between herself and him, while simultaneously claiming that the messages were selectively picked and edited to make Blair look worse in the situation. In other words, is she claiming that he sent over their private messages, but then also said that the messages were fake? Bypassing the obvious contradiction here for a second, this is a big accusation to make during a legal case. Now, we already have seen that lies may have been spread in this document, such as her claiming Wonder said she stole his car when he didn't, and much more. But this is a straight up accusation of falsifying evidence with intention to slander a person. This, again, is a very, very big claim to make. So here's the thing, I could be wrong, but I personally do not believe that this image was photoshopped. But if I am wrong and it turns out that this was somehow, let me know. So if you take this image and amp up the saturation and brightness on it, it doesn't look like anything is out of place. There's no blurry spots over text, no discoloration or anything aside from the scribbles. Is this a foolproof test though? Probably not, but it's one that I've seen others do before on actual fake screenshots. On top of this, if it came down to it, I'm sure Felix could pull up his Discord log for the judge, if the screenshot is real, of course, which at this point, in my opinion, I believe it to be, but who knows, maybe there's a twist here where she can prove that it's fake. In TheMadCatster's video, he also mentioned speaking with Felix, who denies the accusations that the screenshot was edited out of context to make Blair look bad. TheMadCatster also makes another excellent point here. I didn't even catch this. He shares how Felix supposedly signed the agreement in 2021, but this conversation allegedly took place in 2020, an entire year before. Moving on a bit further, in this complaint it states, upon information and belief, defendants are in breach of these agreements by not exhaustively using confidential or proprietary information to defame or otherwise harm Illuminati. Defendants have further established in their intent to post additional content which will harm Illuminati in a devastating manner. As a result of defendants' breaches, Illuminati has incurred damages including but not limited to loss of revenue, future loss of revenue, pain and suffering, and attorney's fees. Again, in my opinion, I'm sure you're tired of hearing me say that part by now, it seems like Blair was trying to make it look like Oz, Wonder, and Felix were using confidential business information to defame her. But this would only make sense to me if they actually actually took her business practices and exposed them to the public, not sharing their own personal experiences dealing with her directly. Also, you know how damage could have been avoided? By not being a crappy, hypocritical person who continued to dig herself into a deeper hole and going after other creators on Twitter for using a fucking generic highlighter effect in their videos. So I question, does Blair want to be the only one who is allowed to make these accusations? Does she want to be the only one allowed to say things about others but not have others say anything about her at all? Because to me, that's what it seems like. To me, it seems like she wants to get away with saying everything she said about all of her ex-business partners, friends, relationships, etc. But when they speak up against her, it is in my opinion that she vindictively retaliates and wants to bully them into silence. So yeah, in my opinion, it seems that she wants to prevent anybody from speaking out against her. She seems to want the ultimate control over this. Skipping to the last bit of the original amended complaint. Defendants published statements about Illuminaughtii as referenced herein. The defamatory nature of these publications was apparent on their face because they alleged commission of criminal offenses and they were allegations incompatible with Illuminauttii's business, trade, profession, or office. These publications were made regarding Illuminaughtii. Illuminaughtii suffered non-economic and special damages as a result to the defendants' publications. Again, she brought up a lot of claims about Oz and Wonder in her Illuminaughtii Exposed video, and they have a right to respond. They did make posts on Twitter, I believe, before this video came out, but it's clear that they were in distress and sharing what I believe to be traumatic personal experiences working with and living with her. To my knowledge, they weren't sharing exclusive company secrets such as methods for growth or success on YouTube or anything like that. The way it is written, it is almost as if she's putting all of the loss of her subscribers and views and success onto Oz Media himself, which is laughable to say at the least. Even before Oz came out with his story or even appearing on Wonder's video, hundreds of videos were already being made on Illuminaughtii. Tons of other people were coming forward sharing their experiences with her. Her sub count was already rapidly declining. But this is just the beginning. Everything seems to get significantly worse from this point on for Blair. After this complaint was filed, Oz Media and his legal team filed for a motion to dismiss the lawsuit due to Blair and her team not providing enough evidence towards her claims such as dates, details, video links, etc. to where certain things were said. And yeah, the details in the original complaint were fairly vague, and some of the dates that were given were just wrong, such as the post of a video by a party not even involved in this lawsuit, to my knowledge. Oz's team also adds this in, which is what I just mentioned a few moments ago. Likewise, plaintiff's breach of contract claim based upon a purported misuse of trade secrets is similarly defective. Plaintiffs have not set forth any facts sufficient to create a plausible claim that anything said or written by defendant was an actual trade secret protected by any agreement. Plaintiffs have already amended their complaint once, but have refused to cure its defects. Accordingly, the court should dismiss the entire amended complaint without leave to amend. In other words, they wanted this to be dismissed without another amendment. So the court responded by giving Blair 2 weeks to provide more evidence proving her accusations. Remember, she had already amended her first complaint, so they were giving her a chance to amend it a second time. In other words, fix it a second time, because she did not provide enough substantial evidence to prove she has been defamed. They wanted to see her provide evidence for every example she had given in her complaint, and if she did not do so within 14 days, they would rule on the at the time pending motions to dismiss. And it just gets messier from here. So Blair did file a second amended complaint, but she sent it in a week late. From everything I've seen regarding her situation, this is probably the most on-brand thing that she could have done in this situation. And what I mean by that is it's very predictable for her specifically, in my opinion. Again, I'm sorry for repeating that so much. For whatever reason, the court did decide to accept it despite saying that if it wasn't submitted within 14 days, they would approve the motion to dismiss. Instead of doing what the court asked her to do, which was provide evidence of her accusations of defamation, she decided to just add in new accusations that weren't in the original complaint. This makes no sense to me because if this was serious enough to add in an amended complaint, why would you not put it in the original complaint? They're asking for evidence, not new accusations. New accusations do not prove that the previous accusations are true or false. All you're doing is extending the list of claims that you have to provide evidence for. I'm gonna go over some of those claims now. They get really weird. Blair had just undergone surgery and was actively taking narcotic painkillers. Therefore, her memory was limited during this period. Because Blair believed that she and Oz were on good terms, he cared for her for a limited time to help her recover from surgery. During this period, the defendant Oz told Blair that he had taken a forbearance reliance on his home loan, and that if she did not provide him with 6 months of mortgage payments, she was going to be evicted from the house because the bank was going to foreclose on his home. Blair does not remember this episode, but her sister and friend were present who do. After Blair had stopped taking these painkillers and regained her ability to retain memories, Oz stated that he had promised to provide this money, and feeling obligated based on the fact that she had no recollection of the promise, did so. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist or anybody who knows how this could actually affect each individual person's memory, so I can't tell you whether or not she is telling the truth here. Who knows? Regardless, she claims that this discussion took place and that others remember it occurring. Okay. And then she adds in how she was almost hospitalized because Oz wasn't taking care of her. During this period, defendant Oz stopped caring for Blair and she was almost hospitalized because of the lack of care, which was previously administered. Why is he obligated to do so unless she was paying him to be her caretaker? Also, really quick, I'm just asking this as a question here. If this is the case, why did she say this in her segment about Oz in her Illuminati exposed video?
And you helped me through a very difficult surgery recovery. I just want to say thank you for always being my support through all of my ups and downs.
She then adds in how she was seeing somebody else romantically over the Christmas holiday that year, and claims that she moved out of Oz's home due to feeling uncomfortable around him, and claimed that while in between moving into a temporary rental and closing on a new home, Oz allegedly accessed her computer and went through her personal messages, leading him to discover that Blair was seeing somebody else. She claims that their relationship ended in 2021, but that after discovering this, Oz allegedly told another employee that Blair had cheated on him. Blair goes on to claim in this amended complaint that she confronted Oz about this and that he allegedly admitted to impermissibly accessing her computer. She also claims that Oz reached out to Wonderstruck and that she quote-unquote played him despite her claiming that the relationship ended a year prior. Blair claims to know of these messages by seeing them published in a video. So after doing some research, I found out that this claim came from Wonderstruck's video in a screenshot that he shared in it. So the screenshot reads, "I'm sorry for everything. A year and a half too late, I know. I'm next apparently, and I'm sorry. Just for everything, man. I should have seen it. I should have seen the effing writing on the wall, but I ignored it in hopes that I was wrong. I saw you unblocked me. I hope deep down that you knew this might happen and gave me a door to open. I might be wrong, but please. I effed up. If you would ever listen to me and hear me out, I would thank the world. I was an idiot, man. Blair played me, and I effing fell for it." If you look at this screenshot, there is no mention of Oz and Blair's romantic relationship. There is no mention of her cheating on him. Yes, he did say that she quote-unquote played him, but I don't see enough context in this screenshot to say with certainty that that is what he was referring to. Months ago, when I first watched Wonder's video, I was under the assumption he meant she played me, as in she tricked me or she used me, given the details of his stories and Wonder's, where they both share how she allegedly manipulated them for her own personal and financial gain. But this gets even worse. She is now trying to spin this as a revenge campaign from Oz because she had gotten into a new relationship, even though, number one, her new relationship was never mentioned by Oz as far as I'm aware in his video, and number two, Oz was not the first person to speak out against Illuminati. In fact, he hadn't even made a video until a while after several other people had made videos on it. I don't know why all of this is suddenly being pinned on him specifically, even though she wasn't canceled until months later in April, and that was when she got in a Twitter argument with Legal Eagle. We know the story by now. Even after that, there is written evidence of Oz expressing how he was fearful of speaking out against her. He was fearful of the retaliation from Blair. He was afraid that she was going to take his house, among many other things, if he dared speak against her. This is a screenshot dated on April 24th, 2023, posted in Oz's video, Let's Talk, an update on the Illuminati drama. I also love that there's a whole wiki page underneath, like it's Twitter/X notes. I don't know when YouTube started doing that. The screenshot reads, "I'd say that if you want to go public, you'd have pretty much a large portion of Sad Milk backing you. Speaking today has lifted a weight off my chest. I don't have to hide or watch my words. I'm scared, man. She has power to evict me from my house. And if she were to do that, you would go public with that too. She gets scared, doubles down, and then evicts you, she'd permanently lose her platform. She wouldn't dare. She can barely reply to legal. She wouldn't do such a thing. Oz says, I'm going to be sick. Are you home right now and able to talk? This does not sound like somebody who is bloodthirsty for revenge, in my opinion. In or around the latter part of April 2023, defendant Oz published a series of Twitter, now X posts, naming Blair as the aggressor and falsely claiming that she has a habit of starting fights. These posts also included Pyramid's confidential information. They then provide a link to that Twitter thread. So this refers to the Twitter thread Oz made on April 24th, 2023, her first bit of any actual evidence, and it's a Twitter thread that contains a tweet saying that she was the aggressor and started fights. Here's the tweet that was linked and referenced. Blair was indeed the aggressor. She has always been. As an example of this behavior, look at the legal situation. Blair has a habit of starting fights, but will almost never publicly apologize if proven wrong. I don't see how that breaches any company confidentiality agreements or whatever, in my opinion. And let's be clear, by the way, this isn't the evidence that the judge requested. This is the second time that she amended this complaint, which was done because the judge wanted to see evidence of her previous claims. These are now additional claims provided on top of the original claims that she's providing little sprinkles of evidence, yet still failing, in my opinion, to provide substantial evidence for the previous claims that she's made. In other words, this is all new information. She still has to provide the evidence for the previous claims. The closest thing is maybe him claiming how she would allegedly block accounts on Twitter and YouTube, but manually approve hateful comments. This will be followed by blocking people on Twitter, silencing her detractors through YouTube channel bans, deleting comments, and putting her accounts on the down low to prevent interaction. For example, on Sad Milk, she would blacklist former collaborators from being mentioned, but manually approve hateful comments towards them, which in my opinion were specifically ones which praised her or the remaining members, including me. But in my opinion, this was expressed to support his own claims of her being vindictive and supported his story and experience. I don't see how sharing this information is spreading confidential information. It's not even like he mentioned specific names or accounts. He was fairly vague with this. And this is just a guess, by the way, on my end that this is the confidential part she was referring to. She did not disclose specifically what confidential information was released, at least yet. After defendant Oz published these inflammatory posts, Blair began receiving death and threats through Twitter, Discord, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and email. Blair made her first call to the police in regard to this on or around April 23rd, 2023. Here's the thing. Number one, I don't condone this type of behavior of any kind, and the majority of other creators, I would like to think, don't condone that either. When covering topics of people who have done something bad or have been controversial in one way or another, that's not an excuse to go and send disgusting threats and messages to them. That's still being hateful and awful. And I get it. This type of stuff is horrifying to hear if you're on the receiving end of those types of messages. I don't wish that on anyone because that is a direct threat of somebody's safety. That is something that's illegal, by the way. You can't just go and threaten somebody's life. With all of that being said, nowhere have I ever seen Oz or Wonder or anybody involved in this directly in any way ever condone such a thing or encourage such a thing from their audience. On top of that, how can you tell that these threats came as a direct result of Oz tweets specifically? People were pretty pissed off at her prior to this over the legal eagle situation, and others have spoken out against her as well. It's not just Oz alone who stood up against her, and to my knowledge, he never made any of these types of threats himself. Yes, she did likely receive an increase in hateful messages due to being canceled online, even if that was not the intention of anybody directly involved in this situation or anybody who's covered the story. With that being said, the consequence should be placed on the individual who said those threatening things, not the person sharing their experience about a situation or covering a story. If somebody is being out of hand and saying harmful, scary things, they should be dealt with by a court of law, not a person sharing their experience or covering a topic, especially especially if they're not actively condoning behavior like this, because again, I have not seen any of them condone such a thing. Meanwhile, it is being accused of them that they were encouraging it. Where was this verbally or in any other way encouraged? It's very unlikely that there is a way to prove that this came directly from Oz Media's tweets, and even if it did, he did not tell anybody to go and do that. He did not even imply it from anything that I've seen. And if he did do that by any means, I'm sure that it would be thrown into this amended complaint for her quote-unquote evidence, which she still doesn't provide much of, at least again from what I can see here. Moving on, she also claims that Oz accused her of embezzlement and other white-collar crimes. What Oz actually claimed was that Blair allegedly knew of a fear that he had from his mom being arrested a long time ago before all of this took place, and that she allegedly used that fear to help him with her situation. From Oz's own video, he claimed that she described to him that she could get in trouble for embezzlement if he did not help her by signing the documents. It was basically him claiming that she said the word embezzlement. He did not outright accuse her of that like this amended complaint states, at least not in this video.
She also would describe to me, and while I can't remember if this exact word was ever used, she essentially explained to me that because she used company funds to assist me, that she had committed embezzlement. And by converting the amount that I owed her into a loan with her company, this would save her skin legally.
Moving on, in this secondly amended complaint, they outright claim that Oz and Wonder created a plan to obtain revenge on Blair. Again, what I'm about to say is just my opinion, some speculation on my end, but I personally wonder if the reason why she isn't directly citing her sources when it comes to making certain accusations, some of which have been proven to be wrong, I question if it's done so on purpose because by going back and citing the source, it would prove the accusation to be wrong. The judge would see every single thing that her and her team have allegedly taken out of context, in my opinion. In this amendment, it was also noted that on top of the confidentiality agreement, there was actually an NDA, if I am correct, and that these agreements were broken regarding Felix the Kit Kat sharing screenshots of iilluminaughtii, allegedly offering him $200 to dig up dirt on the clique. What's confusing, and in my opinion they go back and forth on this, is that they admit that didn't outright accuse Blair of embezzlement, and he couldn't even remember if that was the correct term she used. However, going back earlier on Blair's amendment, didn't she say she didn't remember conversations regarding foreclosure due to being on painkillers? So that's okay for her not to remember, yet when Oz doesn't remember for sure if that was the right word used, it's worded as negligently disregarded. They are using this to say that Oz falsely accused Blair of committing a crime in his video, and are claiming that it's grounds for defamation, when again, he is claiming that she was the one who described this to him. Moving on a bit more, once again, if you want to see this full document, TheMadCatster covered it in his video, and I'll link that down below. Blair once again blames Oz for being the main reason why her YouTube career perished. Defendant's statement caused special damages as evidenced by the fact that plaintiff's revenue from videos dropped by more than 95% after the Let's Talk video was published from $47,665.31 in the period September 16th, 2022 to October 1st, 2022 to $2,302.86 during the same period a year later. Blair suffered non-economic and special damages as explained in paragraph 88 of the complaint as a result of the defendant's publications in an amount to be proved at trial. Aside from the fact that YouTube views and revenues can fluctuate for various reasons, especially if you're comparing month to month with revenue, because every YouTuber knows different months pay different ad rate, and some months you do better and some months you do worse. That's the one gamble of being a YouTuber. For example, November and December have the highest revenue rates, while January is known for having the lowest. Let's disregard all of that for a second and take a look at her social blade here. You can see that around April 18th, 2023, iilluminaughtii had around 1,700,000 subscribers, and oh, by April 26, 2023, it went down to 1,690,000. 2 days later, she posted her iilluminaughtii exposed video. Then the next timestamp on Social Blade is May 4th, 2023, where she went down to 1,640,000 subscribers before Wonder or Oz posted either of their videos. She tries to make it seem like she took a huge hit after Wonderstruck's video that was posted on May 11th, but by doing simple math, you can realize that May 11th 11th comes after May 4th. How could these videos be the main reason why she lost her subscribers if she was already bleeding subscribers before they were even published? Could it be possible at all that the loss of her subscribers was due to the consequence of her own actions? Let's move on further to her alleged damages. So Blair claims that, oh look, she's using her revenue from November and December of the previous year to compare. How coincidental. What was the specific month that she earned $2,751? Why did they not specify with certainty that this was November to December of 2023? Like I said, what a judge or anybody else in the legal system might not know regarding how YouTube's payment system works. For YouTubers, November to December is usually what is considered the highest paying ad months. Due to the holiday season, that is when a lot of advertisers put a lot of ads into YouTube. Therefore, it pays a lot more than, say, January or February. So why didn't she use a month closer to April in 2023 instead of comparing it to November and December of 2022? Would it be because January to March are typically considered lower paying months than December would be? I'm just asking a question, by the way. I just want to know why she picked November to December of 2022 instead of a month like January, February, or March of 2023, closer to the month that everything had affected her career negatively. I also want to know why the month that she earned $2,751 was not mentioned by name the way November to December or May to June was. It says this time a year later, but I want to know specifically, was it November to December 2023 that she earned $2,751? Was it those months specifically? I think that's important. And I think it's also important that that be explained in court for any person making a decision on this case to understand, because this is something that isn't commonly known to people outside of YouTube as a job. Later on, another month is referenced, which is May to June of 2022. By the way, let's just compare here. In November to December of 2022, she claims that she made over $74,000. And in May to June of 2022, she claims she made over $37,000. Can you not see how much of a difference that is prior to all of the controversies? Again, she also uses, quote, a year later. Is this exactly 1 year? If so, why didn't they word it as May to June of 2023? And I don't want to ignore the obvious here. Yes, her views did rapidly decline after this entire controversy began. But this had more to do with than just Oz Media and Wonderstruck. There were so many issues regarding iilluminaughtii. It was not just these two specific people, or even just Felix the Kit Kat. She has paved her way through YouTube by treating several creators terribly, allegedly, and a majority of it seemed to happen behind the scenes until her triangular mask slipped the day that she publicly went after Legal Eagle. That seemed to be the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm even willing to bet that if she had never made this tweet to Legal Eagle back in April of 2023, she probably never would have gone through any of this, and people to this day probably still wouldn't have spoken out against her. Yet she still continues to blame everybody else for her own downfall. On top of all of this, her content, albeit non-existent since last February, was turning into garbage as well. She turned off comments, which yes, prevents negativity, but also stunts engagement with the algorithm, and when engagement is stunted, so are your views. She also has overlooked huge editing mistakes, and instead of cutting them out or fixing them, she just left them up. You could still see it to this day.
But what about other storms? And why does this keep happening?
I believe I did mention this in a previous video, and in that video, like I said, I myself have made editing mistakes. If they're bad enough to the point where it's unwatchable, usually I will take that video down and re-upload it. So my question is, how do you not catch such a huge chunk of your video? This was several minutes long of just silence. Another insane thing, by the way, is in her most recent video, which again was in February of 2024, her voice sounds really weird at points. And I know I am not the best person to pronounce things sometimes, but certain basic words that most people who speak the English language are being pronounced strangely.
Plus, only a handful of states, including Arizona and New York, review ads before they go live, according to the Times survey of regulators.
Listen again, I pronounce a lot of things the wrong way. I try my best, sometimes I mispronounce things, but Arizona? a state. It's just weird. And by weird, I mean that people have been speculating whether or not this is even Blair talking or if this was the usage allegedly of AI. I don't know. Maybe she did just mispronounce it, but that's just wild to me that Arizona was pronounced like that. It's a state. We're going to go back to Felix the Kit Kat for a second to remind you he was the one who Blair had allegedly paid $200 to dig up dirt on another ex-Sadmilk member, the Click. Well, Felix the Kit Kat was seeking a motion to dismiss, and Blair and her team's response were to double down on Felix breaching the confidentiality and or non-disclosure agreement, even though, for a third time, as TheMadCatster pointed out in his video, this conversation allegedly took place before signing any contracts as seen on Blair's documents on when the agreements were signed. What's interesting is that in this response to the motion to dismiss, they now use a screenshot of the conversation used in a video as evidence, but earlier she claimed that this screenshot was edited out of context to make Blair look bad. So which is it? Is she trying to gaslight the law? And as mentioned earlier, Blair was given 14 days to make her amendment to the first document, and she and her team were a week late on submitting it. Again, the request for this amendment was because she was too vague with her accusations, and the judge wanted her to cite where each complaint came from and prove her complaints to be factual. In other words, backing up her claims with proof in the form of a document. In most of the new amendment, she just added more complaints with some links and screenshots to support these new complaints, but also not really because they don't necessarily prove her narrative, in my opinion. Her evidence from the most part was vague from what we, the public, can see. Skov Media's team requested for another motion to dismiss, for the reasons I've just mentioned, as well as requesting that certain complaints, such as Oz allegedly accessing her computer, to be dismissed due to Blair not including those claims in the first complaint or even the first amended complaint. Oz's team also made a claim that Blair and her team were trying to use something called SLAP on Oz, and also that it goes against Colorado's anti-SLAP statutes. What I understand about anti-SLAP statutes is actually really little off of the top of my head, so let's look at this explanation from Cornell Law School. Strategic lawsuit against public participation, or SLAP suit, refers to lawsuits brought by individuals and entities to dissuade their critics from continuing to produce negative publicity. By definition, SLAP suits do not have any true legal claims against the critics. People bring SLAP suits because they can either temporarily prevent their critics from making public statements against them, or more commonly, to make critics spend all their time and resources defending the SLAP suits. Given their ability to stop individuals from exercising their right to free speech, over 30 states have adopted anti-SLAP statutes that make it easier for defendants in SLAP lawsuits to have the case dismissed at the outset, before spending lots of money on attorney fees. In egregious SLAP cases, an anti-SLAP statute may require the plaintiff to pay legal fees of the defendant. So basically, from my understanding, this is a fancy way of accusing her of silencing Oz and Wonder from sharing their stories publicly, which to anybody following this situation, I think everybody understands how obvious it is that she doesn't want her brand or her to be talked about negatively. But again, this is just my opinion. Another YouTuber named VangelinaSkov, who has also been covering this situation in depth, made a video regarding leaked documents involving an alleged civil protection order Blair had allegedly put out against Oz and Wonder. I'll leave her video linked in the description below as well. I've noticed she shared some screenshots of these alleged leaked documents, and I wanted to go over some of them because I find it very important to share for this entire story. As mentioned in VangelinaSkov's video, this civil protection order was actually requested all the way back in June of 2023, but was brought to light publicly only recently. In the civil protection order, there are boxes checked off of domestic abuse, stalking, and physical assault or other situations. On top of that, a description is made where Blair made an accusation of Oz and other collaborators of Sadmilk encouraging followers to attack her through social media. Again, I mentioned this earlier. What part of Oz's or Wonder's video did they encourage anybody watching to go and attack Blair online? I personally have never seen them once encourage such behavior. On or around April 23rd, 2023, Petitioner and Oz had a falling out. Oz and 3 other collaborators involved in the Sadmilk channel made posts to their individual social media accounts deriding Petitioner and making accusations of cruelty, racism, and verbal abuse Since April 23rd, 2023, Oz and his cohorts have continued to post to their channels and encouraged their followers to attack Petitioner in comment sections across her social media platforms and threaten her with bodily harm. I just want to point out that through everything I've seen and all of the coverage I've done on this story, I have not once seen any member of SadMilk encourage threats of bodily harm or harassment or anything like that towards Blair. They were just responding to the accusations she made against them and sharing their own experiences before that. Again, this is from VangelinaSkov's video. I'll link her video in the description below for you to check out if you haven't seen it already. She goes into more information and detail regarding this civil protection order. It goes on to read, redacted, I'm assuming Oz, on May 2nd, 2023, posted a comment to another collaborator's video blog on May 2nd, 2023, under the guise of coming clean about the narrative of cruelty and misbehavior he attributes to Petitioner. That comment generated over 10,000 likes. Doing a little bit of research, I looked up who made a video on Illuminaughtii on May 2nd, 2023, and it was The Click, and Oz did comment on The Click's video, which stated this. Hey everyone, I wanted to thank Click for being so forgiving with how complicit I was with a lot of Blair's behavior, especially her alt account. You can see my direct involvement at 3118. I should have done more to stop her. I honestly don't remember much, but I've seemed to mentally distance myself with these actions and my involvement. This doesn't excuse my part in this. I, at the time, was apparently aware of Blair doing this. I don't remember my involvement. All I have to go off of is that screenshot that Click showed given the timestamp. So what is Oz talking about here? Let's look at the screenshot at 31 minutes in. It's a screenshot from what seems to be Discord and Illuminaughtii allegedly posting doobie schmerts. Oz Media allegedly responding, this is in November of 2020 by the way, please stop what you're doing. She allegedly says, okay. He says, I cannot handle this. Okay, let's let it die. I am not able to record because of this stress. Okay, I'm pulling back. Work with him. Okay. So for those of you who do not remember, doobie schmerts is an alleged alt account from Illuminaughtii or Blair that the Click accused her of using to harass him, as well as other members of SadMilk. There were also other alleged posts from this doobie schmert account on different forms of social media talking about some pretty offensive things. So this is really interesting, but before I go into my thoughts on it, let's finish up what Oz has to say in this comment. I have a lot of growing I need to do to fix the mistakes I've made with backing someone I genuinely believed was the right choice. I am taking responsibility now though and admitting that I have fucked up not by only backing the wrong horse, but doing nothing when this horse seemingly started to kick and bite people. Yeah, the horse will be a horse, but I could have probably done more. Thank you all, and I understand your hesitancy to forgive me. And thank you Click, OT, Salty, Wonder, and all of you glorious bastards who despite everything have done their best to forgive me for the hell that I've allowed to happen. And at the time of recording this, it has 12,000 likes, not 10,000. Does this comment sound like it's encouraging people to go harass, attack, threaten, or anything else to Blair? In my opinion, it sounds like somebody taking accountability for their partial involvement in this alleged sock account that may or may not have been run by Illuminaughtii. And by apologizing for being involved with this alleged sock account, that would actually add validity to its existence, which is something that, again, in my opinion, Blair does not want validated. Petitioner began receiving after Oz and other collaborators' posts. On May 17th, 2023, Petitioner received a threat from an unknown source stating that on May 19th at 12 a.m., there will be a call placed on your home address issuing a hostage situation, and there will be heavily armed and equipped police officers, she wrote officers, that will be discharged to your home address, and we won't hesitate on shooting or flashbanging you. I assume this is a threat of swatting of some sort. Petitioner alerted Colorado Springs after receiving this message. Petitioner in early June of 2023 served Oz with a cease and desist letter due to his rhetoric online, which has resulted in threats made towards the petitioner along with financial harm towards petitioner. Oz, after receiving the cease and desist, posted on June 6th that he was going to continue his rhetoric. Petitioner received an email on June 6th after Oz's post titled, "Go kill yourself, you fat ass fake bitch." The email contained further abusive content. Since June 6, petitioner's full name, birth date, phone number, home address, email accounts, social media accounts, passwords, and schools that petitioner attended have been posted online by an unknown third party. Then why aren't you sending the cease and desist to the third party? On June 13th, 2023, Oz tweeted in part, "The Illuminaughtii petitioner sent a physical cease and desist to my dad's address as well. You're forcing my hand here, something I initially didn't want to do." After Oz's tweet, petitioner received numerous hateful comments on on her social media pages, along with comments for people to go after her sponsors that'll help financially support her. Some of her sponsors stopped working with her due to these comments. The individuals who are going after her sponsors are not Oz or Wonder or anyone in Sad Milk or anybody who has dealt with this through a personal level. They cannot control what other people do. You should be taking this to the actual individuals who were going after your employment or were sending you the threats, not these individuals who did not encourage that from anything that I have seen, and to my knowledge, many of them discouraged it. But I bet you can't guess what I'm going to say next. Yep, it gets worse. At the bottom of this paragraph, a claim was written in pen alleging that Oz would physically assault petitioner's dog during disputes with petitioner. This is a huge accusation to make, and the second time that she would accuse somebody of mistreating a dog, as we've seen her previously accuse Wonder of him not taking care of his dog when he lived with them. This was such a big claim that Oz actually spoke out against this himself, which actually says a lot because he has been quiet through a majority of all of this lawsuit stuff. When you're in a lawsuit with somebody, you're legally advised not to speak about it until it's over with, but he did break his silence over this claim. Oz stated, "So I'm only just now finding out about this, and I'm probably making a massive mistake by tweeting this. Apparently, behind the scenes, in a failed attempt at a restraining order back in June of last year, Blair is flat out lying and claiming that I used to hit Casper. This is in a court-filed document. Thankfully, to my understanding, because I am just now finding out about this due to someone outside of both legal parties leaking these documents, this is outside of the main lawsuit, so I can quickly squash this public, unlike the other claims she's made against me in the legal system, which I am forced to wait on." Just food for thought, if I, God forbid, hurt Casper, why would Blair be in tears at the end of her original video stating she would miss our friendship, and specifically how much of a best friend I was to Casper at 39:27. He's got a timestamp and everything. Also, if this was fact, why is this entirely missing from her current lawsuit? Either Blair is lying here about my towards Casper, or Blair, for some reason, both in her lawsuit and her video, is hiding information and only using it when convenient for her, like a failed restraining order. I've had to publicly bite my tongue on so many of the claims she's made in the legal system, but I can only take so much. Going back to the timestamp,
And you said you'd stay at the house and watch Casper so I could go to my mom. You were there for Casper's various hospitalizations when he would get sick throughout the years, and you helped me through a very difficult surgery recovery. I just want to say thank you for always being my support through all of my ups and downs. I know that a lot of these personal situations in my life left me very thin and sometimes irritable, and I want to say thank you for supporting me through it and talking me through some really hard times. Your support and your friendship meant more to me than I think you'll probably ever know. I'm gonna miss all the fun things we used to do, eating way too much cheese at the melting pot. I'll miss you teaching me how to play Command and Conquer and playing it, and how you've always obviously been Casper's BFF, and you know how Casper is not afraid of Oswaldo. We're both gonna miss you a lot.
listen, this is obviously he said, she said right now when it comes to evidence proving one thing or another, and I don't think we're going to get any more information regarding this until everything legally has been settled. I'm not expecting to see many rebuttals from either party, at least not publicly, until this entire case is done. And I'm not sure when that's going to be. Interestingly enough, as much as Blair has mentioned throughout these lawsuits that she has received harassment after Oz and Wonder's videos were posted, Oz seems to have received a bit of harassment from this situation as well. On March 15th, a day after his original post responding to Blair's claims in the civil protection order, Oz tweeted this: "There's a guy I banned from my comment section because he kept spam commenting under people's comments that I beat dogs. So now, after that ban, he's going to other comment sections of other creators and doing the same thing, accusing me of hiding the truth, saying I can't take negative criticism, rinse and repeat. The man also bots comment likes and has like 20 alt accounts. It's really damn goofy. If he keeps it up, I'm going to make a list of all of his alt accounts I know of, just for public record. He's been doing this for almost 4 months, so this goes back months before he even mentioned the protection order. Making up random lies about me and my personal life, or life in some weird instances, is one thing, but spam commenting that I animals? Nah. Also, this is definitely not Blair, just firmly stating this. Just like towards anybody who has sent threats or harassment to Illuminaughtii, I do not condone anybody sending threats or harassment to Oz or anybody else involved in this situation. And with that being said, I also want to add in that I think this shows that this level of harassment is not exclusive to Blair in this situation. And again, I want to remind you, I think that this is the fault of the individual who is doing the threatening and harassing, not either party who is speaking out in either way, if that makes sense. If you're threatening somebody online, no matter what type of following you have, be it a large following or nobody at all, I think that you should be held to the consequences of that, not a person who is not threatening or condoning threats of somebody sharing their story about something. Anyway, there are also tweets supporting Oz after this situation. Wonder stated, allegedly, it seems almost like, to the best of my knowledge, that someone may have put in a legitimate act of slander or defamation into the legal system and now said slander is public. At least that's how I personally perceive it. This is not an accusation towards any one party. If provably false, I wonder what could be done about such a thing. In my eyes, you'd have to be a pretty horrible human being to lie about dog, especially if it was potentially done for a restraining order to go through, because to my knowledge, that would act as a gag order, no? But nobody would be that shitty, right? Nobody would be so dishonest that they need complete and utter silence in order to be truthful, right? All sounds like a hypothetical nightmare that, if true, I'm sorry to hear you're going through. First of all, I love the way this is worded. Secondly, Blair has allegedly attempted to get a second civil protection order against Wonderstruck. Again, this screenshot comes from VangelinaSkov's video. If you want to hear about the entire documents, again, I'll link her video down below, along with the TheMadCatster's videos who we've mentioned earlier. I'm just briefly going to explain some of the highlights here, and again, she accuses Wonder, just like she did with Oz, of encouraging their followers to attack her, which obviously, again, as far as I know, they have never done that. She also uses Wonder saying, "I will not be silenced," and creating a GoFundMe for legal fees against him. How is that justifiable for a civil protection order? It also adds this at the end. Petitioner requests that this court order Wonderstruck to delete all the posts he has made to social media since April 23rd, 2023, pertaining to Sad Milk, Petitioner, or her social media platforms. Refrain from posting about Petitioner or her social media content of any of his social media accounts or in social media accounts of others. Refrain from posting in the comment section of any other Petitioner's social media accounts. Refrain from interacting in any way with Petitioner's social media posts. Refrain from encouraging any third party to post in the comment section of Petitioner's social media accounts or reposting any of Petitioner's original content for any purpose. And most importantly, refrain from making any videos or media posts about Petitioner. Yeah, listen, in my opinion, there's no way that this is anything other than Blair just trying to silence Oz, Wonder, Felix, and anybody else involved in this situation. This is completely tyrannical, again, in my opinion. The only response Wonder gave was, "There is a lot I want to say." Now, as far as I'm aware, by the context given from Oz's tweet, it seems that these protection orders have failed to go through or have not yet gone through, despite being filed nearly a year ago at the time of recording this. Moving on to more recent events, Oz made this tweet on April 24th. As promised, I've posted a Google Drive link of all legal invoices so far on my GoFundMe, the total being just shy of $40,000, $39,986.29 to be exact. Again, this is not me asking for a second round of funding at this time, only being transparent as promised. A day later, Oz also tweeted, "God, the legal system is such a grueling slog and one of the most stressful and taxable things you can legally do to somebody. But I would rather die than concede under her fucked up terms. So buckle up, Blair. You wanted this." Felix the Kit Kat also responded to Oz's tweet, stating, "As the passenger princess, on this fucked up ride, I can only imagine the amount of stress that this puts on Oz, knowing how much it stresses me out. Just know that Mama didn't raise a quitter and I'm not going to give up." More support was given to Oz through Wonder with a lengthy tweet stating, "Oz, while you've been understandably keeping any and all discussions of legal details private, even behind the scenes, I am truly sorry at the extent of what you must be going through. Anyone who uses illegal threats or suits to fight their battles when countless others were able to rely off of honesty and fact, quite frankly, in my opinion, reek of both incomprehensible privilege and dishonesty. From what I've seen privately in regards to your inevitable video, your multi-page backlog of carefully documented evidence from my perspective not only verifies your experiences as well as disturbs me greatly, but also exemplifies, in my opinion, clear-cut hypocrisy. From what I was reading, from the evidence I was privately provided with, in my opinion, I'm horrified at the alleged lengths one could go to seemingly to spite others they merely didn't like. And this was evidence unrelated to business or legalities. You've made sure to keep that in the dark for the time being. In my opinion, it's wildly unreasonable, but also incredibly telling that your story is seemingly being hushed into submission. But it's not just your story that's being silenced either. From the video intended evidence you've shown me, it doesn't just stop, and that's what personally shattered my perception. There are others who have yet to share their telling of events. To silence you is to silence many, and that's just from what little you've shown me in private conversation. Perhaps I will receive another cease and desist for saying this, but in my strongest opinion, it is only fair that you should be able to share your story. To argue that you shouldn't is hypocritical at best. Again, this is very well worded, and I'm also taking notice of this line stating, but it's not just your story that's being silenced either. Obviously, at this time, I understand the need to stay vague. I can only hope that in time, those who wish to share their experiences can do so without the fear of retaliation or legalities holding them back, or the threat of being silenced holding them back. Only time will tell. However, I share that it does get worse. TheMadCatster has made another video recently titled Exposing Illuminaughtii's Desperation, and the video is about Blair's most recent response to Oz's motion to dismiss. I said it in the beginning of this video, it feels like this is never going to end. This is getting even more wild. This case exists because plaintiff Illuminaughtii began dating someone new and her ex-boyfriend defendant Oz did not like it. Rather than respect her choices, defendant began a social media revenge campaign against her by publishing false and harmful statements about her and her once lucrative business. I think TheMadCatster was right in saying she sounds really desperate, but that's just my opinion. Given the intensity of the defendant lashing out, one might imagine that plaintiff Blair had flaunted her new relationship or done anything that would have promoted a reasonable person to act the way the defendant did. But she did no such thing. Indeed, her new relationship was not public. Defendant learned the relationship only when he accessed Blair's personal computer without her permission and snooped through her private messages. To be sure, not all relationships end well. Even the best endings can cause strife if a former romantic partner moves on and begins another relationship. It goes without saying, however, that defendant's discomfort at plaintiff Blair's new relationship did not authorize him to publish false and harmful personal attacks against plaintiffs. Also, I know I've been saying plaintiff for like 5 minutes. So she's now adding in even more accusations that weren't in the amended complaint. They also try to bring in the argument that Oz allegedly accessing Blair's computer without her permission wasn't properly addressed, when the reason why it wasn't addressed directly was because they were pointing out that this was a brand new accusation that had nothing to do with what the judge requested being evidence of the already existing accusations in the already amended complaint, not new accusations that still lack a substantial amount of evidence. Combing through this more, this stuck out to me. The motion argues that the SAC does not state a breach of contract claim because it fails to identify any information that the defendant wrongfully disclosed. This assertion is not correct. The SAC identified information subject to defendant Oz's confidentiality agreement and a string of references to paragraph in the SAC. Of those paragraphs, paragraph 41 identified defendant Oz's public social media thread, which included the following statements. Anything Blair needed to say went through me first, essentially act as a spokesperson. I always acted as her talking piece, from yelling at one topic to berating Click and other things I did in the service of Illuminaughtii. These posts revealed internal business structure and practice, information and data not generally known outside the company concerning Pyramid or its business, including but not limited to all concepts or ideas involving or reasonably related to business of Pyramid. So before, when she claimed that Oz was spreading confidential information, this is what she was talking about? That makes no sense to me because, in my opinion, he's sharing his his experience with this. Like I mentioned earlier, I would have guessed that the claims of her blocking accounts and whatnot would have been what she was considering confidential information. I wouldn't have guessed this part of the tweet. Not to mention the fact that even this is being vague. How is this confidential business information? The more and more we look into this, the more BS it sounds, in my opinion, because this just sounds like she's mad that he publicly mentioned his negative experience regarding her. How does this reveal internal business structure and practice? What data was even revealed? Moving on to the anti-slap statute that was mentioned in Oz's motion to dismiss, first the court must determine whether the defendant has made a threshold of showing that the plaintiff's claims fall within the scope of the statute. Second, if the defendant meets that threshold, the burden shifts to the plaintiff to establish reasonable likelihood of prevailing on the claim. If the plaintiff fails to satisfy this burden at step 2, then the court must grant the special motion to dismiss. At step 1, the defendant bears the burden to prove that the anti-slap statute applies to the plaintiff's claims. The statute lists 4 qualifying kinds of speech to which it applies. Defendant argues that 2 apply here to the defamation claims. Any written, oral statement or writing made in a place open to the public or a public forum in connection with an issue of the public interest, or any other conduct or communication in furtherance of the exercise of the constitutional right of petition or the constitutional right of free speech in connection with a public issue or issue of public interest. The document goes on a lengthy explanation doubling down that this was a revenge campaign, claiming that Oz wrongfully accused her of embezzlement, which we've already explained how he didn't, and how Blair's legal complaints didn't break any anti-slap laws because not every statement Oz made concerns public interest, apparently. I personally disagree with this, as she made statements against him publicly and he simply responded. She allegedly tried to affect the public image of others, but again, this is just my opinion. What's easy to say though is that Blair is a public figure with a huge audience. Although it's mentioned in this response that just because Blair is a YouTuber doesn't mean she's a public figure. The motion does not provide argument on this point except to assert that being a YouTube personality makes someone a public figure. Apparently, the same way running for elective public office would make a person a public figure. But media attention alone does not make one a public figure, nor are businesses per se public figures. It's not like she was uploading videos on an account with just 100 subscribers. She has over 1 million followers, even after her cancellation. Yet she wants to compare her publicity to that of a politician's? She has more followers on YouTube than many politicians have on social media. Take the governors of New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, for example. They all have less followers than she does on social media, even after her cancellation. There are people all over the United States who are in Congress and work for counties that have a smaller population than what she still currently has as her subscriber count on YouTube. I don't know why she feels the need to compare herself to a non-specific politician. Moving on though, the document also states, Claim 4, defendant falsely accuses plaintiff of coercive financial dealings. Claim 4 is also likely to succeed. Plaintiffs presented evidence that the defendant published statements carrying the defamatory implication that plaintiff engaged in financial coercion. These statements were false and defendant knew them to be false. For example, plaintiffs actually gave defendant financial support for his crypto mining projects. So first, Blair is denying what Oz claimed in his video regarding her allegedly taking advantage of him for financial gain. Also, mentioning the crypto and the personal loans are new accusations as far as I'm aware. Once again, the judge wanted proof of the original accusations, not more accusations to be thrown in. At this point, it's my opinion that she just keeps trying to throw shit at the wall and hoping that it sticks, instead of doing what the court actually requested, which is provide factual evidence to back up her claims in these complaints. This brings us to the conclusion of this final document that we are aware of at this current point, stating, wherefore plaintiffs respectfully request this court to enter its order denying the defendant Oz's motion to dismiss plaintiff's second amended complaint with certificate of conferral and any other relief this court deems just and proper. And this was submitted April 5th, 2024, so actually over a month ago. Like I've mentioned, I will be linking TheMadCatster down below if you want to see all of these documents in more detail. He did a fantastic job covering all of the details regarding all of these documents and went into way more than I have in this video. Usually I like to read over as much as possible, but this is more of a summary and going over highlights of the situation, because if I were to go over every single paragraph of each document, we would be here for hours and hours. Like I mentioned all the way in the beginning, beginning of this video, I originally was not going to do another deep dive on Illuminati until everything has been settled, but like I said, this feels like it's never going to end. But for now, I just wanted to recap a lot of the stuff that has been going on. I also wanted to go over, like I mentioned earlier, a little bit of the weird stuff happening on her channel as it continuously gets worse and how she's been MIA for a few months now. There's just been so much piling up on this entire story over the past few months that I felt it necessary to just do another longer form video going over everything, and hopefully this can finally be settled, and the next time I talk about this there will hopefully be good updates. As of right now, with every update that I have seen, Illuminati seems to be getting more and more desperate with this situation. It seems like she's grasping at straws for a lot of these claims, and it doesn't look professional in the slightest. I have no idea how this is going to turn out, but if things keep going the way that they are, it doesn't look like it's going to turn out good for her. I do hope that Oz and Wonders and Felix the Kit Kat's cases do eventually get dismissed, and that they are able to freely speak about this the way that they want to at some point in the future, and are able to do so in a way where they don't feel fear about it, because it sucks to feel fearful of discussing somebody because they might retaliate, allegedly. With that being said, if there are any huge updates, I will let you know. Hopefully there aren't for a while and they are able to get this situation settled. In the meantime, I'm wishing everybody in this situation the best, because it's not fair, in my opinion, what she is doing to the people in this lawsuit. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video. Before we go, I wanted to share something unrelated but very important. So this is entirely unrelated to anything we've talked about today. This is just the first video that I am able to put out this month. It's been a video I've been working on for 2 weeks at this point. I wanted to just put this in here because I know that this is going to be my next video that I post. There are some events going on right now that I think are extremely helpful towards the people who are in Palestine. One of those things is something that I've seen creators share on social media the past few days, which is an event called Creators for Palestine. At this time, I think there's over like 50 creators directly involved with this event. I'm not directly involved with it. For now, I just want to give this a shout out. I'm just going to read what this post says here. Creators for Palestine has raised over $250,000 for PCRF, and now they're expanding to charities we have known to be actively on the ground in Gaza and Rafah: MAP, UNRWA, and Heal Palestine. With the current state Gaza is in, we are looking to urgently raise to $1 million to address humanitarian needs and immediate relief, including providing essential and medical treatment supplies, food, clean water, and other necessities for families affected by the G word that I sure as hell know that YouTube probably won't let me say, but you know what it is. I've been posting about this more on Instagram stories, by the way. If you haven't followed me over there, do so. YouTube is very, very, very picky with certain words that you use. If your video gets deemed as not appropriate, it won't get pushed out and it won't be seen, which is really annoying. It also says, when we get to $750,000, we will put on a creator stream to raise more money for these charities to help us get to our $1 million goal. Please stand with us in solidarity, donate, and share now. And then it gives the link at the bottom. I'm going to put that link in the description below. Again, I'm not directly affiliated with this. There's a couple creators that I like who are affiliated with this, and I've seen them post about it, and I wanted to share that to you guys as well. There's another program that I think is really doing a lot, and this is something that I recently found out about through a creator known as Stanzi Potenza. I've actually been watching their videos for a very long time. I usually don't talk about too many creators that I really like on this channel because we're usually talking about not so great stuff. They collaborated with a program called Operation Olive Branch, which has a huge spreadsheet, and on the spreadsheet there is a list of over 800 families to help in Gaza, and I shared this on my Instagram stories a few days ago, almost a week ago by the time you see this video, where there are GoFundMes for individual families, and there was one family that Stanzi had shared that they were able to meet the goal that was needed to help that family, and there is a protection service on each GoFundMe that is listed. I actually want to highlight a doctor right now. His name is Dr. Muhammad Atala. I'll leave the GoFundMe link in the description below so you can read the entire thing, but I want to read a little snippet here. It says, throughout the conflict, Dr. Muhammad tirelessly supported patients, risking his own life at Al-Qasa Hospital in Gaza. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. His dedication knows no bounds as he walks 2 hours every day to aid patients in need, demonstrating an unwanting commitment to his community. In addition to his heroic efforts during the war, Dr. Muhammad established Al-Amal Medical Health Center, a sanctuary of over 40,000 residents seeking clinical health care, leading a team of doctors, nurses, and pharmacists. He served as the medical director, ensuring access to essential medical services for those in need. I'll be linking his GoFundMe as well as his Instagram page in the description of this video as well. With that being said, I am going to end this video here. Thank you so much if you made it all the way to the end of this video. Thank you so much to everybody supporting me over on Patreon. Thank you so much to anybody who has given me a super thanks. Like I said, once again, one more time, just gonna let you know, there's a few links to check out in the description if you want to lend a helping hand. I am not affiliated or sponsored or anything directly involved in these programs. I just think it's important to shout out. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I will see you again really soon. We have some updates on some recent topics covered and some other stories that I really want to share. I'll see you later.